are live. Woo! Hello. Welcome to our first Saturday session.
Good
I've got
morning.
Jimmy Harmsworth with me. Hi, Jimmy.
Good morning, everybody.
And we've got Dave Bull with us as well from LucidLink. G'day, Dave.
Good morning, everybody.
So, this is a whole new thing for us. We're trying the Saturday time slot for the Australian Eastern region to see how this works. It might become part of what we do in season 2. It might also become something else that we do as far as sort of hands-on stuff as well, which is what we're here for. So feel free to jump on the chats. Those of you who have registered, thank you. There was 13 registered people that have joined up for this particular session where they've downloaded and received through that registration some login information for LucidLink. It's completely free. The storage has been set up courtesy of LucidLink. Thank you, Dave, for setting that up for us and for everyone else who's jumped on. And yeah, we're going to take your questions as you go. We want to work sort of through how to set it up as well, because there's different ways that you might set up different folders that people can and can't see and use, different login sort of related things like that. There's quite a bit of things you can sort of set up. But I also wanted to do team projects, a little bit of that, but we'll do that maybe near the end because it's pretty straightforward. But productions, this is unique to be able to do a hands-on productions. Everyone's got questions about productions, then we can deal with it straight away. So pretty special being able to use this tech in order to do that. Righto, Jimmy, how was your Friday night?
Wasn't too bad, mate.
Wasn't too bad.
Bit of a quiet one. I had my best mate come round. His son is trying to earn money for a very fancy remote control car, so he came round to mow my lawn to earn a few dollars.
Oh, well, there you go, dollary dues.
Mm.
And Dave, what did you do Friday night in Melbourne?
Uneventful. Cooked a beef brisket.
That sounds good.
That sounds eventful to me.
Yeah.
It was only a small one. It was only a very small one.
Okay.
Yes, there's lunch for sandwiches today.
Nice.
Beautiful. Making me hungry already.
Nothing like setting up a whole bunch of things that you can take advantage of later on.
That's
kind of falls into the topic of what we're doing today.
Yeah,
so hopefully, if anyone's got any issues with the way that they had to install stuff, I know on the Mac side you can hit some security flags that maybe freak some people out, but try not to get too discouraged by that. Just accept it and let it go through, and it should all be good. Let's have a look here if we've got any chit chat going on. I'm going to double check our little commentary framework that our team use. Okay, so there's some questions here about the 14-day trial. Okay, now that's the 14-day trial is if you've signed up for your own account. In this case, you don't need an account. You just need the plugin at the moment. Is that right, Dave? The way that we've structured today versus kind of ongoing interest?
That's exactly right. So for today, downloading the LucidLink client and installing that to participate in the file space is all you need to do. If you want to explore further, by all means, sign up for the 14-day trial. We will leave this file space activated for some time for exploration in a sandpit. Yeah, definitely nothing for today needs to happen other than installing the LucidLink client.
Cool. So yeah, if you do want to just tell us a little bit about sort of setting it up, if you do want to play with this in your own little bubble or sandpit outside of what you've provided for us, because you have provided not just access to the login through your service, there's other components to it such as the storage. So because we're based in Australia, the rules of the way that things are going to work over here is a little bit different to say someone who's joining us from the US. Could you just talk a little bit about that as well?
Yes, no problems. So there's a couple of components to LucidLink. And our goals were to make cloud storage as simple as possible. the ability to bring your own storage account, so bring your own cloud object storage account, so you know where your data is located in the sovereignty of your account and your country or region where you want to host that data. The second is the client and the end-to-end encryption of how to liaise as a file system with the cloud. When you set up your own account, you've got a couple of choices. You can provision LucidLink storage. We have two profiles, standard and performance, depending on what type of workload. So we would recommend performance for video, CAD CAM, any of the live data requirements. Standard is great for archive, backup, a standard repository, a general repository. Or you bring your own storage account, whether that be S3 compatible, AWS, Google, or any on-premises S3 compatible storage platform, or Azure Blob storage.
A question I had actually that came up in our little group yesterday actually was whether you can BYO storage from your own server. There was a few people that have facilities that they have their own shared storage workspace.
That's
when
right.
you say S3, is that related to that particular storage needs to be rated at and how it's connected?
That's right. So it's how it's a protocol that is used to liaise with the object store. We work with object storage. A lot of people have S3 compatible object storage on premises or in their data center. So that's the requirement for LucidLink, the S3 compatible protocol.
So you could have your RAID arrays or whatever it is that you have at your particular location connected to the internet, and LucidLink will work with that.
That's exactly right. Yes, connected to the internet. That's the only requirement. Make sure that your object store is published to the internet, obviously to collaborate with clients outside of the network, and that is as simple as that.
Great.
Cool. All right, there's a few other questions flying in from Julian, of course, who's one of our direct team players who's very interested in the tech. So he's curious about the login. Now, the login that I have sent out is actually the same login to those who have registered. So you've got your own login through registering, but you can have separate users and separate logins and passwords and things like that. So we'll go into a bit of that in a minute. Let's see what else you got. Could we mix the standard and performance file space types? For example, storing the original camera files on the cheap plan with infrequent access, and then the proxies on the performance plan. I think I know what the answer might be, but Dave, you will really know the answer.
Yeah. So an account can have multiple file spaces, but every file space is backed by object storage or a bucket or container within object storage. Therefore, if you have standard or performance, they're hosted, in our particular case of storage profiles, they're hosted by different vendors. One of them is hosted by Wasabi for standard and AWS for performance. Therefore, they're geographically separate in separate storage services. Now, if you have multiple file spaces in the same storage account, they are still geographically separated in separate buckets and separate containers. So they are separate repositories of data. You would have to move data between the two. And we do have people going from a performance for their production and then moving data as they stop using it in production, as it's finished and completed, to standard for their file server, archive, active archive data. So wherever your data resides is the profile it resides in with the storage account. You do need to move between file spaces. So I'd recommend always going from production for your production workloads to another file space, such as standard, or a lower cost object storage provider.
How does that then work so with the way that we log in, is that part of the same login and you have a dedicated folder that's part of the archive storage that you? I'm still a little not sure how it works.
So they're different file spaces. You'll note when you install our LucidLink client, you can connect to multiple file spaces, or we keep a history of multiple
Yep.
file spaces. So
I might
file
show
space
that.
one, oh, excellent, that'd be great. Disconnect.
Okay, let's see if I can get my little zoomy zoom to work. Right.
That's-
Okay, so let's have a look here. I went in to this little icon. Okay, and then it gave me that view. Oh, geez, the lag on this is hilarious. So in the top right, there's the 3 lines, and then that's where you've got access to a few other options. And I do have a couple different logins. So if I was to disconnect, then
Perfect.
I'd be asked to go in and start to, let me just zoom back out here, disconnect. Cool.
Perfect. So there we will keep a history of your different file spaces that you've connected to. So in this case, we've got the CHiNWAG.file system file spaces. We've got 2 users though. We've got Root for administrative access, and we've got John for his own access, for his own user access controls. So if we had multiple file spaces, they'd retain there as a history, and you can switch between them. Keeping in mind, we encrypt on the client side. So every file space has its own encryption key that's managed on the client side by the user access controls. Therefore, the data inside each container or bucket in S3 or Azure is encrypted on the client side. Even if you were to put multiple file spaces in the same bucket, it's separate data. It's separate data governed by separate zero knowledge encryption model for each file space.
Right. Okay. Cool. Now there's a couple more questions here. Hang on, let's just bring up our faces. How does this go if you've got editors in different parts of the world? So we sort of mentioned this in the Thursday night session, where we talked about, obviously your location is going to make a big difference. If you're majority working with people that are outside of East Coast Australia, then you should really consider a different location other than Melbourne as the central point, just because there's not enough connections
That's
for
right.
people overseas to really hit the servers here in an efficient way.
Yeah.
So somewhere there's going to have to be a bit of a trade-off. Based on your recommendation, David, and what you've seen with the customers you've worked with, let's say, and I'll take the example here in the question, they've got people working in Europe or other parts of Asia, but there's also the Australian contingent. If that was let's say the 2/3 of the earth there, what would be, in your experience, sort of where they should explore that bucket of storage to be coming from?
Very good question. We have clients with multiple file spaces in the different regions. That's one of the points or benefits of having multiple file spaces. So your active workloads for your active projects should be in your closest region where the users that need to participate or operate on that particular project are located. As John, you've highlighted, you can't break the laws of physics. So distance and latency are always going to get in the way. We negate the challenges of latency through the way we stream data, but at the end of the day, data has to move. So where the data is located is critical and important. Having said that, from a time to use perspective, the benefits of our technology being able to stream the data on demand mean that if someone is in Asia and all of a sudden they need to participate in a project from the UK, they can still connect to that file space. It's not going to be as optimal as their file space within their Asia region. And ultimately, if they're required to operate for an extended period of time in that file space, it'd make sense to move the data across to the file space where the users are located. But you can connect, disconnect, and connect to multiple file spaces. And by all means, have multiple file spaces where your centralized users are located.
Cool. So yeah, that's a good thing to be conscious of when you start looking at this as a solution. Being very conscious of where the servers are, where that bucket storage sits, and maybe looking at spreading that load out depending on the scale of where the workload is going to be done mostly.
Predominantly. Yeah.
Cool. All right. There's another question here by Julian to do with the file spaces and having, can you have more than one file space connected at a time? I think the answer is no.
The answer is yes, no. The answer is no,
Oh, cool.
yes. The answer is yes, no, in the context of through the UI, through the user interface, you cannot yet. Through the command line, which people often balk at embracing, you can mount multiple instances. We typically see that for migration type approaches, moving data between file spaces for different users located around the world, or moving data from a production, it's finished, now archive it. So it is more often from an administrative server side than the general editors or general users. But yes, you can mount multiple file spaces in different instances.
Okay, that's cool. All right. I guess the pricing is the next question I'll bring up here. Again, Julian's just full of questions, and I love it.
Good.
Pricing, is it, and this is just for LucidLink or the Lucid app, is that per user, per file space? How does that work?
Good question. So we start at $10 per terabyte for the file space.
So it's at a storage level.
There's two components to it. There's a storage component of you bring your own storage. It's $10 per terabyte per month for your storage under management within LucidLink. Then there's a user component of $10 per user. This is US dollars, $10 per user per month for user access. So then we have the two different bundles of standard and performance. With the standard, we include Wasabi, which rounds out to $6 per terabyte. So you know that is a pass-through. We've passed that through at $16 US, $10 per terabyte, and the $6 for the accompanying Wasabi storage. With our performance profile, it's $85. Now, the difference there is that is backed by S3, Amazon S3 storage, and then includes an egress component. So we have a one-to-one egress offering or licensing model where you put a terabyte in and take a terabyte out. It's $85. Every subsequent terabyte after that of egress, because the cloud providers often charge an egress. Wasabi in particular does not. Most of the hyperscalers, Microsoft, Amazon, AWS, and Google, they do charge an egress fee. Therefore, we've bundled that egress fee to provide some level of certainty and consistency in your licensing. So you know what it's going to cost, because a lot of the times you put a lot of data into the cloud, and the cloud providers, of course, want you to use it. Therefore, that incurs additional charges.
Right. I'm a simple guy. What does egress mean?
Yeah,
exactly.
Egress is data out, data to the internet from the storage. So ingress is putting data in, and egress is taking data out, or in layman's term, using the data. So often when you put data up in video, you'll put a video up. Let's say you put 500 gigabytes of data up in a video, and then you have 10 people liaising with it. Okay. If they're liaising with, say, a quarter of it, because we stream, they only need to seek through to particular parts of the timeline, perform what they need to perform, or review what they need to review. All of those touch points are going to obviously equate to data traversing out into the player, into Premiere Panel, or into VLC. So that's the egress. And many cloud providers charge, let's just approximately say 9 cents per gig on egress. Sometimes if you've got if you've got an account with the hyperscalers, you may have express routes or direct connect pipes, which have a different egress cost associated to the bundle of the connection subscription that you've got, but typically work on the basis that they're with the hyperscalers, an egress component.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's a few different things to consider as far as budget goes.
For sure.
Yeah. So do your research. All right. This is a good question from Jude. Can you buy just a single month for like short jobs? How does that sort of play out?
Certainly. You can. We're a subscription model, so you can build launch a file space, put your credit card in, and use LucidLink. When you delete the file space, that's it. You stop incurring charges. So yeah, it's simply you can spin up, and people often do. They have their primary file space for their primary data, and then they'll spin up individual file spaces for 3, 6 month, 1 month projects. As you add and remove the file spaces, billing ceases for file spaces that no longer exist.
Right. So this is sort of directly related to where the costs, who bears the cost. So if, and this questions come from Julian again. Keep calling him out. He just keeps coming up with great questions.
Yeah.
If you're, let's say you're a freelancer, and I'd say the majority of people that are sort of watching right now probably fit into that category. There's probably a few that might be business owners, but if a freelancer is involved in a LucidLink collaborative experience, where does the cost go? And in that case, if a business has set it up, does a freelancer end up bearing costs, or are they just sort of embedded into who set it up, being the employer?
That's right. The primary account holder is responsible for billing. So the clients sitting out on the edge, participating in the file space, they will only incur their connectivity charges that they require to have the internet. Now, if you've got unlimited internet, that's it. There's no charge, whatever your internet plan is. So if you've got a data plan on your mobile phone and you need to tether to a hotspot in a cafe, then you've got to make sure you've got appropriate data to participate in the file space. So that's the incurred charges from the user is the internet connectivity. The file space account holder manages the storage, manages the billing, manages all those elements.
Right. Okay. I think that was a little bit of a concern in that a lot of freelancers are probably sitting there going, okay, so if I have to join a job that has been set up by someone else, I have to pay a fee for LucidLink and I've got to pay some sort of fee for the storage. But that's not the case.
That's not the case. No.
You're just paying for your internet, which you're probably already paying for anyway.
If I've got 10 employees and then I've got 5 contractors, I would need to pay for my 10 employees $10 per month and my 5 contractors. And then, of course, the capacity for the file space. It's...
That makes heaps of sense. All right, cool. Well, I reckon we start playing with the software. Everyone who's online now should have their own LucidLink copy installed. So I think we'll take a look here at... Let's take a look at what it looks like when you go into the root system. So I'll just join into the root system here, and we can see behind the curtain of how to set things up. And it's pretty straightforward, actually. I was quite pleasantly surprised at how simple it is to get things.
I was blown away at how quickly I got this set up and working the other day.
So this has loaded me instantly into a drive location on this particular system, and it's labeled at L because I'm on Windows. It needs a drive letter. But if you're on a Mac, then it's just going to load as a volume, and if you're on Linux, same sort of thing. It automatically connects up to somewhere. One question that came in the lead up to the session today was, how do you control what drive this lands on?
Perfect.
So maybe we start in there. So I'm going to go to the app and then into, let's see here, this control panel area, and open the control panel.
That's right.
Okay, cool.
So we've got 2 options there. We've got settings and we've got global defaults on the left-hand side.
Yep.
So you can specify the global defaults for all the clients participating in the file space, the global namespace, where their default mount points are going to be. Each individual user can overrule that, but we provide a couple of different examples. You can mount as an L drive, as we default to. You can change the drive letter to another drive if you've already got something that conflicts. You can also mount as a folder structure, so say C/Lucid or C/your file space to provision your data. The same with macOS. The default is under volumes, under the file space name. And for Linux, it's under media, under the file space name. Now, down the bottom there, you can also see the root point. So when we look at the directory structure, and John logged into the file space where he was provisioning as root. So you can see there, they're the root folders that were accessible. Now, if you don't want to provision the root folder with all the directory structures, you've got two ways of doing that. You can set up user access controls for user shares or groups, and then provision only the data that's visible. But then some data may be required. Let's say it was Avid locations that need to be mounted to a specific location for the asset linking. You can set where the root path is. So if I have a file space mounted as L drive and I've got a folder shared to me as folder, well, my asset linking, I may not want it to be L drive /folder / the project. I may want to be directly inside folder. So my L drive is represented as folder. Therefore, that additional hop of the share doesn't exist. It goes directly to where the assets are, so that the application can ingest the data the way it natively needs to see where the data was located.
Okay, right. So that way, you just, instead of going through subfolders, whoever it is that needs to do the work, they just jump straight into the folder that they need to start working with.
That's right. So any legacy projects that are moved into LucidLink, we can adopt the folder hierarchy and directory structure from a naming convention perspective. Okay. So they're the couple of points there that you've full control over where it's mounted, how it's mounted on each of the operating environments. And you can set that for the defaults. Plus, each user can override in their own local settings those properties.
Right.
So if you go to settings,
local settings now,
you are connected on Windows. We know that. So we're not going to provide you for this particular client. Now, you could have multiple clients, John. You could have a Windows machine, you could have a Mac OS machine, you could have a Linux machine, all participating in that same user account and file space. And then you can set each of the different mount points for the operating environments across each of the systems.
Right. With the cache, is there a way to control where that cache lands? For example,
yes, there is.
Let's say my system drive is getting full and 5 gig's not a lot, but let's say 5 gig is kind of impinging on the thresholds of free space, so then I can manage my RAM properly. So how does one go about changing where that cache sits?
Yep, very easily. The location for default is under the user profile or home directory. So Mac and Linux home directory user profile, typically on C drive or the operating operating system volume. That's where we'll default to. You can move that. At the moment, it is a CLI command that you move it, although we'll make that a lot easier through the user interface. But simply moving that cache location and equally resizing that cache from the default of 5 gigabytes up to a terabyte, for instance. If you've got a particular project that requires a lot more data to be hosted locally or streamed and cached locally.
Okay, cool.
Think of cache as a spring, not a bucket. You typically allow that cache, as we said on Thursday night, to be elastic and grow and shrink and those sorts of things.
It kind of constantly refreshes as required.
Yes.
Yep, cool. So at the moment, if I was to try to manage this, so if I was to click on edit, I really, at the moment, through the user interface of the control panel, can only control the size. I can't control the location. That's a separate line of code that needs to be done somewhere else.
Yeah, in the command line, we've got a knowledge base article on support. So the bottom left-hand corner, you've got support. We won't need to go through it now, but you can always click on that, and that opens up our knowledge base articles that have a wealth of information there. Keep in mind, as I said, cache is a spring, not a bucket. You'll be surprised at what you can do with 5 gig of cache, the default. Now, most operating systems, 5 to 20 gig of free space is usually sufficient for us to work within the boundaries of.
Okay, cool. Righto. All right. Well, let's have a look then at just setting up this groups thing, and the users and the shares just very quickly. Let's start with the shares, because I think that was the bit that got me a little bit stuck at first. What I wanted to do, and let's see if this relates to others that have already gone in and tried to have a play with the 15-day trial. In here, I went to create a share, and then I went, oh, right, cool. I see a folder, and I'm like, share folder. And it only shows me folders that exist at the storage side. So if I wanted to add another one into there, you don't do it through the share management control panel user interface. It's just reading what exists at the storage level.
That's right.
And for me to control that, I use my Lucid drive to create and remove folders as I would on any other storage.
That's exactly right. In order to share something or provision something, it needs to exist. Something needs to be something. So if you create a folder, test drive, perfect.
Yep, cool. So now I've added that.
You've added that.
LucidLink mount.
Yep. Now that's available to us. So you'll press refresh up the top next to share management, because we need to refresh the paths.
Oh, it actually looked like it tried to do it on its own. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it will refresh periodically, but
okay, there we go. And there we see it down there now. Test drive folder.
Yep. So then we can provision it to our users or our user groups. So typically people would use groups in a manner that, say, for instance, in our case, we've got CHiNWAG workshop and CHiNWAG productions, or you could set up employees, contractors, or you could break it down into project 1, project 2, project 3, and assign the shares and all the users to each of the projects you want them participating on. So you've got a lot of granularity as to how you can set it up. Users need to have their own user access in order to access. So in our case, we've got CHiNWAG workshop _6, which is our user that we're sharing across the whole workshop.
Yep.
That's assigned certain shares. So if we maybe go into shares or users,
let's
click
go,
on
users. We'll go to users. And so at the user level, I created a 06 version of that. And then I also added that they were part of a group. And so that's how I went in and, through the groups list that I've made, added them to the workshop group. And then so this was the trick that I did in setting it up, is that in the shares, instead of going, well, I need the CHiNWAG folder to go to these users, all these users, blah, 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 blah. I went, no. This is easier if I have users assigned to a group, then I just assign the group.
That's right. That's exactly right. Perfect. So then only that data that's assigned to the group or shared to the users is accessible. So we have our root management layer for this, managing and administering your file space. And we have your root directory structure, but you don't need to expose your entire root directory structure, indicated by the /, which is the root path. Right. You can then nest people into particular folders and shares. So you may want to have a typical corporate or NAS environment, network storage or file server environment. You may have data, you may have sales, you may have marketing, you may have users. Inside users, you have 1, user 2, user 3, user 4. You can provision all of that data. Who's associated to the marketing group? They'll be in a marketing group. They may have some overlap into the sales group. You can provision them, read-only access or read-write access across your hierarchy. So it's very flexible and made for organizations as well as contractors to be able to be provisioned data and only see the data they need to see.
Yep. Yeah, I really like it. Yeah, the only thing that kind of got me stuck was how do I make folders and manage the folders. But once I understood how that connected to reading the files themselves and then managing the files themselves, like I would on any other drive system,
That's right.
then it can mount it. It's like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. That was the only thing that kind of got me a little bit confused. But I'm a simple guy.
Yep, no problems.
Cool. All right. Well, who wants to start having a play in there? Like I mentioned at the top of this, we'll. Oh, hang on. There's a question there about the pricing. The numbers you were giving, is that US dollars?
That is US dollars. Yes, that is US dollars. I apologise for not making that clear.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's get started on having some fun here. So, those of you who have got access to this, I'll just delete this test drive folder. Boom. Now, you guys will have access to the CHiNWAG. You won't see... Oh, actually, I might have also added review. Let me double check here.
I don't see review, mate.
Oh, Jimmy, let me get you upgraded, and we can show how you can just add people to it. So let me go to Jimmy's control here, the shares that he's got. I will give you. Actually, you should be able to see.
I can see read. I've got read only, read write.
That's right. So you've nested him access only within read write or read only, not within review. So you've given him review / read only in read and review / read write in read write. He will only see read write and review.
Okay, so I'll add review now.
Yep.
With a read write.
If you wanted to.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so I'll do that with the. Let's do this with the group.
John, I would leave it as it is, because just having read only, read write, that's exactly what those folders are. So let's let people explore that and see, as long as there's something in read only for them to see.
Yeah. I'm just going to double check though that I've actually set it up with the productions group.
Okay.
Has got access to the particular shares. So let's see. Give access. So
there is data inside assets read only. So at least then they'll be able to read those. They won't be able to modify those. They'll be able to add and contribute data to read write.
Right. Okay, so at the top level, the review folder is read and write, but within that folder, there's two other subfolders. One of them is read write, the other one is read only, and it's respecting those.
Only through when you share them. If you add that at that level, they will have read write access into review. Okay. If you give them read write, see, there'll be three folders. Otherwise, there'd be review. Like Jimmy, you've got three folders. You've got review, read only, and read write.
Correct.
Yeah. So.
Oh, and CHiNWAG.
And CHiNWAG, of course.
Right.
So I would only nest the read only and read write, because you may have a folder called projects, and then inside projects you may have project 1, project 2, customer 1, customer 2, customer 3. You'll only want to provision customer 1, customer 2, customer 3. You may not, or probably won't want to, unless it's the project manager, provision access to projects.
Right.
Yeah, and I think this is where the post supervisor who is administrating this whole thing is going to need to have his ducks in a row. So this would be less stressful, I think, on the contractor or the person jumping into the file system than it would be obviously on the overall systems management person who will, be keeper of the knowledge and guardian of the data in terms of who gets when, where, and what, and how that's structured and organized. I think it'd be obviously very, very valuable to put a strategy together before you start setting everything up.
Definitely flow charted and storyboard it, because the last thing you want to do is, if you've got different accounts with different contractors and you don't want them to see, I work for Coca-Cola, I work for Pepsi, I work for, all of these others. you don't want to expose data. So we've taken an approach that we will only expose data that's shared. Hence why before you didn't see review, Jimmy, you only saw read only and read write. Inside review, there could have been a folder called customer sensitive or
embargo data.
That's right, something proprietary.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, I've just changed my profile, so now mine sees CHiNWAG, read only, review. Yeah. So that's actually given me a separate option to log in. Right. That's cool. Okay. Now I kind of get the way this works. So if I just had review, then I would get the read only and the read write, but it's actually given me a separate mount point for read only, which is actually inside of the review folder as well.
That's right.
Okay, so I'm creating mount points.
That's exactly right. You're creating, shared access within the volume to the data that's in the file space.
Cool. All right. Well, anyone who's on this, who's got access to this, who's got some footage they maybe want to throw up, that'd be cool. It'd be cool for us to see how, just hurl it out. To see how that works. You get to see what it's like, and you get us as a collective here to give you this feedback and see what that experience is like when you share something, and then what it looks like on the other end.
And so, sorry, John.
No, go, man.
I was just going to say that Jimmy folder there. I was just going to briefly go through how I actually approach this. Do you think that would be beneficial?
I think so.
So my approach to the Jimmy folder was that I had an existing project that was on my local storage. And so what I did was a project manage the footage. In the scenario that I had in my head was I've got a rough cut ready sort of close to where I need it to be, but I definitely want some craft editing done, and I want it to be done with what I've selected and not with the whole project. So it wasn't 100%. That certainly the contractor doesn't need all of the footage that I have. So I project managed that footage then directly to the LucidLink cloud, and had it also create proxies for me. So it went up with a new project with all of the original media, as well as created proxies, so that they could jump in and just use the very, very light proxies. And that was my strategy for that workflow. And I think if you are using editors that are coming in just to do craft stuff, they don't need all the original stuff. I would suggest just managing the project to the cloud with some proxies if you are using large raw files. And then they can just jump in and actually just use the proxy media. So in effect, you could have them render out a master if they needed to, or you could just upload the proxies and just have them work with the proxies, do a craft edit, and then bring that back down. Yeah,
there's many ways to sort of go about and divide and subdivide what they have access to, what you even put into the cloud, just because you might be the one who decides that you want to use the full res and you do the export. That's it. You're the last port of call.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone else that you farm out the work to, they really are just working with proxies. That's it. So that limits the amount of data you need to push around or push up, and it can expedite the whole thing. However, you've still got that flexibility if you want to push all the originals up and then have someone else handle, let's say, the grade. They're grading with the original source files. They're not having to try to grade with potential color space shift or gamma shift proxies. They're actually working with the real files. And they're only working with the real bits of the edit of those clips, not the entirety of all of the clip of all the clips that we used, just the bits that are part of what's being graded, which are the frames that have been selected in the edit. That's really, to me, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Sweet.
It looks like I've contributed a file under read write, and it looks like someone else has put a video in. So I've put a
cool
nature video in, and looks like under review read write we've got some data there.
Yep. I can see that.
Sweet. Okay, cool. So that's 2 meg, that's 700 meg. Okay, I'm going to do this thing where on Windows, there is a plugin that you can get called Quick Look. And it does the same thing as if you're on a Mac, where you hit spacebar, and I'm just going to jump further down. There we go. Yeah, and I can hear it as well.
So if you were to open up, just for argument's sake, so we can see the data streaming, John, if you were to right click on the task manager there and go task manager
and get my performance.
Yep. Performance. Now just double click on the Ethernet.
Okay, we'll open it right up. Oh yeah, you just want it small, so it's not taking up heaps of space.
Yeah, just so we can see the video.
Okay. Actually, you know what? I don't mind it taking up more space.
Perfect. Okay, well at the moment we've got
make sure that's on top, always on top. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Ethernet. Cool.
So if you open up the video.
Now I just did the spacebar thing before, but I'll open it in VLC.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. It doesn't need to go to VLC. It's going to the other one. Let's go to VLC. Right click. Oh. Is it here? Here we go. Right. So
as the data streams, you'll see the Mbps increase. Now, if it's a portion we've already looked at, and then if you seek to a different area, a different point.
Right, quite a bit further down. Now, keep in mind, this hasn't fully synced the whole file. I'm just
our goal is to not sync the entire file. Our goal is to stream the data on demand. Note, as you're streaming, as you're reading, and I can't see the whole window of Task Manager, unfortunately, John. As you're playing it and streaming it, that's when Task Manager should be reacting with data. There it is there. So as you seek in between, we will then be drawing it down and working within the parameters of that default 5 GB cache.
Now, if I roll back a bit and start playing over the same sort of section, so that's a bit new.
That's very new. I
can see my network is not being used at all. Or very little. Or is it?
I'm actually watching this file as well as we speak too.
Yeah, so the thing with the cache is that when that cluster of that area of where you want to be playing back the clip has cached, the internet's not pulling that down again because it's already pulled it down. It's using what's in the cache. Is that right?
That's exactly right. We'll use what's in the cache, and then as you're operating, and as Jimmy highlighted, John, you're both participating in the file space and reviewing the footage, but you're both doing different things. Therefore, cool. Jimmy's cache is different to your cache, John, which is a critical important factor to raise, because there are technologies out there that act as NAS gateways. I won't name them, but they're NAS gateways. They're file servers that sit in the corner, and they provide a centralized cache for people to work on as they draw data from the cloud. Now, that's a centralized cache. That means everyone's trespassing over a shared cache. Whereas with LucidLink, everyone's OS client, Windows, Mac, and Linux, is acting like its own storage gateway to the cloud and caching only the data that particular user is utilizing, not all of the people participating on the project. So you're all at different stages of the project. Therefore, you're all being only as productive as you're all individually being, and utilizing your bandwidth and your cache with only what you're working on.
It's such an efficient way of having data being moved around and only needing to use what that user is wanting to use, even though everything is sitting in the cloud. It's just use at what you need. I'm still blown away by how the tech actually works. And how responsive it is,
how quick
even
it
though
is.
I haven't got the greatest internet. Now, there's something that I want to sort of rectify with my own knowledge, my own awareness of how this works. I'm just going to go and share my screen again. Now, when I first started using this, the settings were basically just chew as much internet as is available. And because we're doing the stream, there has been a couple of bits where I can hear the stream has sort of got a bit laggy in our little meeting that we're hosting, so we can see and hear you guys through the feed. So on the machine that I've got right now, I went and changed my download rate and limited it to 10 meg. Now my max speed in great conditions is about 42. And so how does this work when I make the change? When does it adjust? What are some of the caveats of starting to work where this is set to unlimited and then you realize, oh, I want to make a change to it? What's that experience? What's some of the technical things going on there? Let's say I want to now make that lower, like 5.
Well, you should have it to 5 anyway. If your internet is 42 Mbps, then divided by 8 is 5 megabytes a second. We're still going to saturate the whole lot of 5 megabytes a second out of 40 Mbps. So I'd probably set that to 2 or 3. However, we haven't had a problem. So let's not.
It's been pretty good. Well, at 10, it was when I played that back, it was a little bit choppy.
Because 10 Mbps is actually 98 to 100. So 10 megabytes a second is about 98 to 100 Mbps, which in Australia here is usually the maximum consumer plan we can get with our national broadband, up to 100 Mbps. So that's immediate. The way we enable streaming the data from the object store is we break the data down. Not only do we encrypt it, but we break the data down into usable blocks or chunks. Okay, we use the object storage provider like sectors on a hard drive. We don't do what most people, when they've aspired towards cloud, do, push and pull whole objects or files. That's why people's user experience, when they've aspired towards moving the cloud, has not been successful or has been a poor experience for the end user. It's great for putting a lot of data in, but it's very difficult to work with it. So in order to solve that challenge, we break the data down into usable chunks. We then connect to that data through the internet, through the client, and we draw in parallel multiple chunks at a time into the cache as a prefetch, preload, very similar to the way a hard drive does with a buffer. It reads ahead, and that's the data. So when you change, that's the data access. So when you change the network profile to reduce the data access, that happens almost immediately. You'll see the Mbps drop right down.
Cool.
Now, so if someone's added that file.
Sorry. Yep.
I was just going to say, if someone's added that file, often there's not yet enough of that file up into the cloud, into the object store, for us to access it on geographically separate clients. So where is, if we look at the size of that file, maybe go to.
So that's
what are we looking at?
This is a 1 gig. Yeah, so this is something Julian's just put this file in. It's a 1 gig.
It's growing in front of my eyes. 1.5 now, it says on my end.
There's a question that Julian's got about how do you monitor where the upload is
perfect
going at a percentage, like how much longer am I having to wait for it?
Good question.
That's where I was heading, exactly there. So Julian, you'll note that if you go to the LucidLink dashboard, you'll see remaining upload. You'll also see an icon on that file showing that it's still in flight, an up arrow, a blue up arrow. So you'll see the remaining uploads. Before the authoritative copy, the cloud, the object store, the single source of truth, has all the data that everyone can start collaborating on. So we're waiting on Julian to send 999.
It's actually bigger.
Bigger.
So he's saying it's 2.65 gig is the total file. So it hasn't finished going up yet.
Yeah.
So Julian, can you see if you were to select the icon for the Lucid app, right? It then shows you here that there's the remaining upload.
It's up to 2.2 at the moment, 2.2. So it's actually
Okay, so
ready.
it's got 400 left. This is interesting though. So on the other end, on my end, there doesn't seem to be a way for me to see whether or not that file is still going, and that I'm ready to start using it.
Yes, no, because I can see right now that it's got 2.4, and it's at 2.47. You're in a thumbnail view, so you can't see the file. If you were to change the details.
Okay, let's go to the view.
So I can see it growing at my end.
So there it is.
Okay, but yeah, I guess this is an interesting bit of feedback too. So I don't, unless he's told me, I don't know that file is actually 2.6.
And I've got it
moving. That's right. And we will enhance that with more overlays, icon overlays, to show that a file is in flight. At the moment, we only show the person uploading, but we will show that a file is, being touched. Yes, you can see it because you'll see the data move, but you should have already been able to start playing when you had 900 meg. You should have been already able to start playing that rain grade movie of what was already there.
Right. But that's from the top end of the file.
That's right.
Right. So I wouldn't be able to jump around until the entire file is in the cloud.
You wouldn't be able to move to the end. In fact, most of the time the viewer will only show you, if you've got the first 18 minutes of the file, it'll only show you the first 18 minutes of the file. Now, that particular file, let's assume it's a very large file, you may have crippled your download because, let's face it, you've got a lot going on from the data stream.
Yeah.
So reduced to 3 megasecond.
Let's go.
And I'm not sure what the bit rate is of that movie or that video clip.
Okay, I might put this back to what I had before. 3 is pretty low. But yeah, another bit of feedback is that this bit here being in the megabytes per second versus megabits per second, just because we do tend to, depending on which part of the country or which part of the world, I should say, you're thinking of how you calculate the megabits versus megabytes. That might
720 megabits. The video is
the kilobytes and kilobits, the big B's and the little B's. I wonder if there's an option to put in the bits.
It's fair enough feedback. I tend to always bristle when people tell me I've got 100 meg internet. Well, is it megabytes, megabit? So yeah, distinguishing between the two. That's good feedback. Very good feedback.
Because not everybody understands that 1/8 calculation into bits and bytes, and because it's an 8, it's 0.8 rather than just a tenth. It makes it weird, and some people just very technical people who'd probably be setting this up. Yes, great, but most editors that are on this end, sitting here going, "Oh, I need to figure out what my bandwidth needs to be for my setup at home." I'm just thinking it might be quite helpful if there was a megabits per second, which is probably how their internet is provided and how they think of their internet speed is more bits than bytes.
That's right. Yep. Good feedback. I cannot disagree.
Cool. Now I'm just wondering if my
Queensgate grade has arrived. I can see that now. Maybe if we jump into productions, John. And,
let's do that. Cool. All right. Who wants to have a crack at production? So that's the other thing as well, is those of you who are not familiar with productions, you get to try it now, and try to break it. It won't break. It'll work. Let's have a look here. I've got my LucidLink, CHiNWAG. Now, there's already one set up, but what I might do is set up one from scratch, because I don't think I showed how that works when we did the productions thing. So I'll just go to Premiere Pro and begin a whole production from scratch. Now,
and just so people know that you need to actually set up this from the productions panel. Is that correct, John?
Kind of.
Kind of? It's a yes, no?
Well, so the thing is, you need to decide, are you working in, when you say new, and when you look at the homepage, which we're looking at right now, you've got new project, you've got new team project, but there's no option in this area to make a new production.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a bit that's missing. Now, if you go into File, New, you will get all three. And the thing is, if you start a new production, then you're creating a sandbox for production-based projects. If you start and make a new project, the project won't be part of the production. When you're in productions and you're in the production panel, that's where you make new projects, but you can import projects over and it makes a copy and then they become part of the sandbox of the production folder now.
Yeah.
We'll start a new production.
And that's where I think I got a few questions on that. And I was,
so we'll start a new production. What do we call this? We'll call this, what was the name of that? What was the name of that file that went in? Let's see here. Was it in Jimmy? Where did he put it?
It was in read only.
It was in the read only.
Read write.
Oh, sorry, read write.
Oh, read write, my bad.
Excuse me.
Okay. Review, read write. All right, so we'll call it rain grade. I might just copy that. Okay, I'm going to go back to new production, give it the name. Now I'm going to put this into a different location, like where it is. So we're still on the last known, which is LucidLink. That's fine. CHiNWAG, fine. I'll put in here a new folder, and this will be the root folder for this production. So I'll call that root at the end, right? Rain grade V2 root. Actually, let's get rid of the V2. Now, as I'm doing this, everyone else should be seeing that these folders are updating for you in real time. Because the folder's tiny, teeny. Okay, so I've just changed it to rain underscore grade underscore root. Now, this is where there's going to be the name of the production as a folder. Then there'll be associated autosave and other folders that get made up when you make a new production. Sorry, a new project. Then inside this folder will be the folders that you use to manage your projects. Okay. Create. There's no projects yet, except for one that's called Untitled. Now, if I was to right-click and reveal in Explorer, this will show inside. So take a look here. We got that CHiNWAG, then we got the rain grade root, then the name of the production, and these are the auto-made folders that are associated to all of the different projects that you've got in here. So right now, I've got no folders managing my projects. So I'll just make one here. It's very similar to the way that we see these updates inside of LucidLink as well. So here I'll call this one ingest, and then I'll move over this side. Notice it's now updated with the new folder. I'll actually move that into that folder. So I'm now managing where things go. And then I'll flip back and we can see that inside the ingest folder on the storage side, that's moved the PR lock file as well as the project file. Now the PR lock means that I own it and I've got control of that project. I'll just go back in here and rename this. So we'll call this, I call it dailies. You can name it however many times as you want.
It's just changed immediately at my end.
Yep, perfect. Now, if any of you are already in here, now the way for you to get in here, now this is something that people sort of get a little bit confused about. If I was to close this down now, so I will close the production, save that blank project. Okay, where do you go when you want to mount the production folder? There's two ways to go about it. One I recommend because it just makes life quite a bit easier. If you were to go File, Open Production, it remembers where it has last gone to ones that were properly nominated folders. If I want to browse, because I haven't mounted it before, the thing is here I've got my CHiNWAG, then the root. You need to actually go inside the named folder that's the name of the production, not just the root. Right? And the reason being is that it needs to see, if I go back over to look at the files that exist inside, not the root. The root has the folder for the name of the production. Inside the name of the production is this .prodset file. That's what it needs. Unfortunately, in Gen 1, version 1 of this, it doesn't show me that inside of going to open production. So this can be confusing, right? What I want people to do, though, is to, instead of doing that, oh, we can hear a bit of a loop there.
Echo.
That might be you, Dave. Your speakers might be a bit loud. Or it's just not cancelling out. What I suggest you do is, if you do have a folder that you know has got some projects in there, just go and open one of the projects. So someone else has already opened it now. So when I go to open that project that's part of the cluster of production projects, this will help me to go in and open that up, and it will open the production user interface as well. So let's just double click on dailies, even though someone else has it open. Okay, look, there's another folder in here now. It opened the production panel, and I can see that someone with the name admin has got it open. And if
Admin.
I twirl these
What a
down,
name.
let's have a look. I can see the name there. So this gives me a bird's eye view of what's happening at the file level. Oh, Jude's in there. Sweet. Okay. Jimmy's got something open as well. And I can see on my end that the dailies is open by me because it's a white icon, but it's locked by someone named admin. Now, I still have it open. Someone just unlocked it. So I have it open, so it's white, but there's no owner. So if I go in and click on the padlock, I can then take control. Now this is not open by me, but it is already locked by someone else who has it open. So it's an outline of the icon, and the padlock shows that it is locked, and then I can see who it is that's got it locked.
And then I could relinquish that if I like.
Right.
By doing this. Yes.
Okay.
And away we go.
Right, so Jimmy's just relinquished it, and in real time that's just popped up there that I don't have it open, so it's just an outline. No one has it open. So I'm guessing you closed it as well?
No, I have it open.
Oh, you've got it open still. Right.
Yep.
Well, there you go. So that's how this system works. Now, if I hit the little padlock on the dailies project panel, I get the green pencil. The green pencil shows up for me, but for anyone else, they will have the padlock, and depending on whether they've got the project open or not open, will define whether the icon, and I might just make these bigger actually, the icon for the project is filled with white or it's just an outline.
And so to ingest the footage from LucidLink to your dailies project.
Yep. Cool.
So
it looks like Julian's done something here. I've added Premiere Marker to the African nature clip. Can people see it? Oh, is that in the export? I wonder if he's done that in the export. Okay, so I'll be control of dailies, right? So I'm going to move that over to this side. Then I'm going to go to my media browser and look for LucidLink. I might make this full screen as well. It is under the review, read write, and here we go, African nature, 4K, and the grade, rain grade, cool. So I'm just going to get this to import. Now keep in mind, I didn't sync that file, but I can start to see the file, and my internet connection's very slow right now. So it's going to take a little bit for it to actually sync over and bring it in. There we go. It's brought it into my project. Let's see if I can get this. Now, anyone else that's doing this in real time on your end, you should have a much better connection speed than what I'm dealing with. And that's because I've throttled the hell out of it because we're doing the live stream.
Yeah.
Okay, so that exists inside of dailies. Anyone else who's got dailies open, because I haven't saved it yet, you will not see that this exists. If you have the dailies project open, I need to save it first. And then you'll get a icon in where the name of the dailies is. It'll look like a warning sign. Then from the little flyout menu, you can go and refresh. Now it looks like for me, I don't need to refresh it, obviously, because I have control of it. But that's how you refresh the reload of what's inside that project. And then you can start using it in any other projects you might have open. Oh, someone's making graphics. See, this is cool. And I tell you what, without LucidLink, this real-time system of like monitoring what's happening across the different projects within the production, just nowhere near as responsive. If anything, it probably just wouldn't even work properly at all. So there's a graphics folder, but there's no content in there.
Could you give me back control of Rough Cut, please?
Someone who's got the project name,
that's Root. Somebody's opened
Root.
Root.
So if you want to change the name of that, or set the name, you go into your preferences and then look at collaboration inside of preferences. And then this is where you change the name. So when you create a production and you open a project that is part of a production, the project locking must be turned on. So Adobe, turn it on and then gray off the option to turn it off, because you cannot function with cross-referencing assets between different productions and different projects, assets within different projects that are part of an interconnected web without that project locking mechanism working. So it is on and you cannot turn it off if you're in a project that's part of a production.
Thank you for relinquishing Rough Cut.
Alrighty. All right, I'm going to open this particular file up and let's see, is there a marker, a green one and an orange one inside the file? Because I don't see one. If it's inside the file, I would assume if it's in the file.
Wasn't it inside the nature video?
Oh, my bad. I'm such a dimwit. All right, well, let's open that up inside the source. I think we got a little bit of reverb.
I'll change my microphone. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. Cool. I can see them. Yes, Julian, Bing and Bong. And yeah, I've just opened them in the source and haven't loaded it into any particular project, but I can see them straight away in there. And it says here, I like this shot. So let's look at here we go, cool. This is cool to be able to communicate like this. That's super cool. And yeah, I just park my frame, my playhead on a particular frame, and it takes a second for it to get there, but then I'll hit play, and it's playing. It's just playing. So cool.
And I'm jumping in and I'm editing my Rough Cut right now, and I've dumped in a few markers onto a timeline. I've done a couple of cuts, then just saved those, and those have all seamlessly synced straight away.
Cool. Now the rain grade. So I'm just prepping stuff. So I've just updated the dailies project. So if anyone else wants to jump in and start, making projects. Now the thing is, I haven't shown how to make projects yet. If you want to make a project, inside of here, you right click on a folder and create a new project, and that will go inside that folder. Or you could right click in any of the blank space and create a new project, and that will go outside of the folders. And you can move these things around at any point. You can rename these projects at any point. So if a fine cut is ready for review, you could make a folder for review. Let me just make one up here. And then move it there when it's ready for that process. So someone who's there just doing a review can keep that folder open, and as they move that around, they're the ones that, let's see, someone has got control of that, I reckon. Fine cut. Oh no, there we go. I just moved fine cut.
I basically just duplicated fine cut from my rough cut. So I was, and Jude, I can see that Jude's playing with the rough cut. She can make additional changes to that and then duplicate it and call it Jude's fine cut. This is amazing because it's all just happening right in front of me. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people all working on this production together. And it's all working from the cloud. So you can see the potential of this. I mean, it's I have still yet to fully get my head around how collaborative this is from remote location, because I feel like in this sense that I'm actually sitting in the same room and we're all on a server together and we're all communicating on different edits, and it's mind-bending.
Yeah, it's very cool. Now the Queensgate project, which is locked at the moment, Julian owns it. I'm going to open it because he's mentioned that he has, oops, I've clicked on the wrong thing there. He's mentioned there's a duplicate ID somewhere.
Jude's rough cut, and I can see that she's put some text in there. Test. I've just opened it. Of course, I can't change it because it's locked, but I can see it. And
now let's see. There's a clip that it's disconnected to, but I'll just go and search for it and reconnect. And look at that. There's a scene detect that someone else did that I can benefit from seeing their scene detect.
Okay. Hey, John, just to also highlight, see down the bottom right-hand corner, you've got generating peak file for Queensgate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you turn off automatic waveform generation,
then it doesn't need to do that. You can hear it, but you can't see the waveform until you play over it.
To actually play it, because otherwise it's traversing the data and drawing it into the cache in order to play the audio to build the waveform. So it just makes sense to turn that off when you're collaborating.
Yep, that's another thing that will help with just getting things ready to go. So if you turn that feature off, which is in the preferences, automatic audio waveform generation, that's turned on by default. If you turn that off, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to see waveforms at all. It just means that if you have a specific file that you want to do that to, then you can right-click on it and generate that particular, let's see here if it's under edit. It's probably not clip. Generate audio waveform. So if you have a specific file that you do need to see it, not just hear it, but actually see it, and I know for some reason, it's not common in other parts of the world. When I was cutting jobs, I would use the waveform as sort of a guide of where I would jump to where there was something relevant, especially for interviews. And even just in general, I'd kind of go, well, I kind of want to jump to here. And I use the waveform as my guide to find usually around the point where something would start to be interesting and maybe end being interesting. But yeah, this is how you go and generate the waveform for a specific file. And you can collectively grab a bunch of clips and go and request that as well. And that'll do it to the group selection. Cool.
The duplicate IDs thing that Julian has just shared.
This is interesting.
What would that be related to?
I'm not 100% certain, to be honest. And I haven't seen it before.
No.
It's probably got something to do with, let's see. Well, let's have a read.
So there is a text file associated.
Project with duplicate IDs, which will interfere with tracking media across projects. To remove these duplicated projects and add them to the production using add projects command. Oh, there's a project that was duplicated and someone else may have done it at the same time, and then there was a bit of a conflict that there's a project that has the same name, and you can't have two projects with the same name. It creates weirdness because the project name is part of the cross-referencing data, and if they're the same, it can create a conflict on revealing where the clips actually come from.
Gotcha. Yep,
Cool.
that makes sense.
Sweet. All right. Well, we are coming up to the 11 o'clock hour. Now, I'm happy to go a little bit longer. I did want to look at team projects as well. So team projects, basically, you can use the team projects ecosystem to do the brains of the project and sharing it that way. And then the files, because we're just mounting a file location, the exchange of files that are ready to be played back, that's what this LucidLink ecosystem allows you to have. Very, very quick ability to hit play and have frames and audio ready to be played back. If you were to use any other sort of syncing system where you got to sync the entire file before you're able to play it back, with team projects, you could be exchanging a team change, like changes to that team project, and the receiver will get that immediately. And then if they get those changes, like refresh it themselves, the files that they're working with may not be ready to be played back yet and get the great big red screen that says media offline. So there's a different way that you could be utilizing this as well for that kind of workflow if you don't want to be exchanging productions. But I tell you what, if you've got access to productions and this ecosystem of the file system, I don't see why you would even bother with team projects.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking that myself. It's very similar workflow. It's just kind of contained in its own sandbox, as you said, that creates this then multi-editor workflow where you can be working through dailies, then roughs, then finds and crafts and all that sort of stuff. I can just imagine the possibilities.
Very cool. Anyone got any questions?
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat.
Where's my chat on?
I'm looking at the live chat. Yeah. Jude. So Jude McAuley is in Perth. And she's like responding here. This is so crazy fast and responsive. It is. It's insane. It's so good. It's so good. Now, the storage that we're using, Dave, this one is Azure, Microsoft Azure.
Yeah, Microsoft Azure in Melbourne.
Based in Melbourne. So the servers are in Melbourne.
The object store. There is no such thing as a server.
There you go. I'm learning
Objects.
something.
We're talking to an entire Microsoft Azure region based in Melbourne. So the way that we break the data down into that block level layout means all the clients participating in the file space, the global namespace, are interacting directly with the object store in broken down blocks and laying out as an aggregate across the entire region. When data is then streamed back by each individual client, you're making a call to the cloud to draw the data back. So your connectivity over in Perth as a direct feed essentially across, what are we? I can't even remember how many kilometers we are.
It's a long way.
Yeah, 4,000 kilometers away. And liaising directly with Microsoft Azure in Melbourne region.
And so, as you can imagine, that working with an editor that quickly in Perth doesn't, especially if you were using proxy workflow, for example, would work relatively seamlessly at this point. I don't see any lag between what Jude's done and me being able to say open her edits and look at what she's added in. That's because right. It for all intents and purposes just looked immediately like something had popped up if we were working on, say, the same server in the same room.
That's exactly right. That's the difference. We've been able to achieve a workflow that typically you would only be able to achieve within a local file server or NAS on premises in the same room, least the same building or on campus at the same time.
Exactly.
Because we're 4,000 kilometres away, and we've got people distributed all around the country. And technically, as we started the conversation, it is ideal to have the data in the closest region to the bulk of your users.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason why we could not open up this project in Germany and work, albeit maybe a little bit degraded, but faster than waiting to sync the whole media, or certainly faster than couriering the hard drive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe just a little bit faster than couriering the hard drive.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a question here about offline. Jude's asking if once you start working, are you able to work offline? I'm going to have a crack at responding to this one.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not connected through Lucid app, then the mount point where all the files that you're utilizing right now, which is the project files as well as the folders, the subfolders, and where the files that you're working with are, if you're not mounted, then it can't mount to anything. So it doesn't exist. It's like disconnecting a drive.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. Put in a USB drive, take a USB drive out. So you have to be connected through the internet to have that communication in order to mount the drive and the drive points, those folder locations. The thing is, you're not actually smashing the internet if you've already played back frames. Those frames that you've played out, they exist in the cache. You're drawing from the cache then. So the network won't be hit because it's not having to bring anything new down.
Yeah.
As long as your cache is big enough, you could probably work on an entire project and not touch the sides because you've cached what you need.
The Docker trailer that I put up, I mean, each of those proxy files ended up being sort of about 18 megabytes each. So, you're playing a full edit there, and you're not even touching the sides of that 5 gigabyte cache. And if you play the whole timeline, then you know what, it's all there. But yeah, there's I think another question that I did get yesterday offline was that, was this is just like Creative Cloud, the Creative Cloud? And I said, well, no, it's not, because Creative Cloud is like a Dropbox file syncing system where your file needs to sync before it is available to your system. This is not that at all. This is a true cloud workflow. Having
said that, and brilliant answer, John, on the technology as it stands right now. Although, am I able to share my screen?
Ooh, we can. Give me a second here. I have to set things up. Let's see. If you want to, we can.
We may not have to. We may not have to.
No, that's all right. Let me just share my screen for a second.
If you share yours,
I'll go. Oh, well, yeah. If you can walk me through, and I can be your.
It's going to come out within the next month, certainly this quarter, by Christmas. Let's say it's a Christmas present. Okay. If you open up the LucidLink file space mount point in Explorer, just the yellow. Yep. Okay. No, just open.
Sorry.
Yep. In Explorer.
Let's just jump in here and then go.
And perfect. Levels. If you were to go into our CHiNWAG folder.
Yep.
And go into right click on our rain grade root folder.
Right.
So we have a feature, and let's not click it yet. We have a feature called Start Preload. Start Preload draws the data down into your cache. However, it's going to be replaced by Christmas, for Christmas, with PIN. PIN will enable you to have an offline copy. The authoritative copy is still the cloud, but it is pinned or available to you in its entirety in your cache. So it is a form of offline, but it's not true offline mode. For instance, the data always has to go back to the cloud. It's a collaborative distributed file system. But at least you know the data is pinned locally if that's a project that you are going to spend your day on, your week on, your month on. You have the data locally. Any changes get sent to the cloud, okay, the authoritative copy. Remembering we are a distributed collaborative system, all source of truth needs to be the cloud. You do need to be connected, and I don't believe we're going to have people working from planes for a very long time. So I don't know whether there's a need to be creative,
Someone just asked about the plane.
Well, you'd have to be,
Well,
depends on
so
if the company thinks you're on their time in transit.
I having said that though, I have had some big overseas trips for conventions where I did pay for the internet on the flight, and it was actually wasn't
good.
high speed, but it was consistently there. So if I've pre-cached stuff, I can't see why it wouldn't sort of still allow me to work.
Yeah. So that's just another situation, Jimmy and John, for the yes, no answer.
Yeah.
Yes, you can preload and you will be able to pin, and that'll get us even closer to being able to be offline eventually.
Wow, this is cool. Watch this space.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, unless there's something specific that people want to test here or got any other questions around, I'm happy to sit here for a little bit and just, I don't know, keep playing with the idea of productions until we sort of, I don't know, for the next 5 minutes. We're going to go a little bit over. But yeah, essentially we're kind of done. If you got any further questions around LucidLink, David, how will people get in contact with you?
We have multiple avenues. Emailing david.bull@lucidlink.com, or alternatively, reaching out on our website to our web chat provides you a facility to the whole team 24/7. So yeah, by all means, reach out either on web chat or come to me directly, david.bull@lucidlink.com. And happy to answer any questions. We will leave this file space open and active for some time. So feel free to play around with it and explore it. And then by all means, sign up yourself for the 14-day trial.
Yeah, I highly suggest that. At least have a go and see what's possible. And I'm speaking to, in this case, probably to post supervisors who have thought about but not yet played in the cloud environment to see how a remote workflow would work. Because I know that there's been a lot of talk on the subject of how to work remotely properly. And there's obviously, I've been pushing people towards Creative Cloud as a solution, but I've only stress tested it in terms of using very, very small files and not had long form documentary work, have not had large file, say red projects up in the cloud, because it just doesn't work that way. Whereas with this, and if you've got a BYO storage solution as well, I think it'd be a great thing to just have an experiment with, just see what the possibilities are.
Well, I mean, coming from Adobe myself, I can quite confidently say that there's at the moment the way that the CC files or Creative Cloud file system works is you have to sync the entire file, and that is completely different to what we've been doing here today. So it's out of the box. It's no extra cost, obviously, if you're using that system, and that is getting you where you need to go in the timeframes that is comfortable for you. But otherwise, this is why technology partners are part of the ecosystem of being with an Adobe product line. We have these partnerships. We want to help these partners to sort of have people know that they exist and that these other options are out there. Obviously, there's other costs associated, but cost of time and cost of time to market is usually the factor that comes into play when wanting to reach outside of what you get in the box. And I think personally, this has got a lot of potential value for a lot of different people. And I'm still blown away by how responsive this is. I keep forgetting that it's not.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that's the weird thing. It doesn't feel like we're sitting in different places.
Completely different places. Yeah. So anyway, righto. Well, I guess we're technically closing out the show now. Thanks for joining us on the Saturday. If you feel the Saturday is a better time frame, or maybe the weekend is a better time frame, we really want to know. So comment about that, please. If you're watching the replay of this and you're in the Australia region, know that the Saturday for us is like a Friday for the US, and our Saturday evening would be a Saturday morning for those in Europe. So I do want to start to expand who we can have live interactions with. So maybe the weekends are something that we consider for season 2 of the show. But this is the last bit of season 1. Thanks for joining us. And if you want to play any music, Jimmy, feel free to play your silky tracks.
Play us out. Play us out.
Thanks, David, for showing up on a Saturday morning, getting up early.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. It's been brilliant.
And thanks again for setting this up. Yeah, if anyone does want to share the login, I guess, because you know the login, that's okay. It'd be cool to get people to register just so I get a sense of who has got what experience with cloud. That sort of helps me figure out what kind of content we might put for season 2 around cloud focus. You know, we do a bit of that. But yeah, if anyone wants to register, that'd be useful as well. But like Dave said, this will be open for a little while.
And hit us up on the Facebook page. Give us a like.
Yeah,
subscribe
jump on Facebook.
YouTube.
To YouTube. We're on Twitter as well. CHiNWAG. CHiNWAG. I had to think about it for a second. On Twitter, we can have a chat or a CHiNWAG there. I'm going to keep playing with this edit. Now, someone mentioned earlier there was an issue they were seeing around fonts. Not sure where that's coming from.
Fonts would be a good one, I think. But then if you're using Creative Cloud fonts, that should be fine, shouldn't it, John?
It should, yeah. I have heard a few people say that they're seeing like can't load font messages when they don't have any text in the project, which is odd. There we go. Jimmy's got finished for quality control, QC.
Yeah, I just added a QC.
There's nothing in there.
I've added a QC, and then there's nothing in there yet because we haven't jumped in there yet.
Oh, I'm going to share my screen. Thanks, Dave. You can log off if you like and continue your morning.
We're finished. We're not streaming.
No, we're still streaming.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want, you could log out. You don't have to. I'm not saying you have to. This is so cool. The other thing I've noticed as well, just testing out the speed of doing the jump cuts, is Queen's Gate. Throw this. I can't open it there because it's not mine. Here we go. Okay. So Jimmy, Julian. Alright, fine. Fine cut review. It's a terrible workflow. Somewhere in here. No,
I'm just trying to put something into my QC folder.
Oh, there's a read write.
Have I broken it?
Oh, there's something's missing. Yeah, interesting. Ah, is this a video blocks thing that you put up there? Edit day 1. Oh, maybe that's the file that's not actually in the LucidLink store location.
It's in read write. It's in Lucid.
Maybe it's not
review
finished
/
going
read
up.
write.
Let me try and link the media manually. Okay.
So CHiNWAG, Lucid Review.
Yeah, it should find it if it's got the right name. Maybe the name's changed.
John, inside Lucid Review. So L for Lucid. Just L right, the root directory.
Oh, on the root directory. I've only got
the root
CHiNWAG.
directory, under review.
Oh yeah.
Under review, read only,
Oh,
read
my
right.
bad. My
Yeah,
bad. Here
so
we go. Let's search the right cluster. There we go. I wasn't looking in the right location. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Duplicate IDs. We've got this fun thing again. I should clean that up. All right, well, what I wanted to do is take this Queensgate grade, stick that into here, resize it.
It's because you're in the Queensgate one. That's why I think I had a conflict, because I've got a duplicate ID conflict again.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's popped up for me again too. We'll sort that out. But
I
I wanted
think that's just because I think there's somebody fiddling around in the actual folder structure. That's probably why I think Julian mentioned that that's what happens.
okay.
You do it outside of productions. Is that correct? Could be that. Cool.
Well, one thing I wanted to do is do the scene edit detection and just show one of these really cool features about it. I'm going to create a bin of sub clips from each detected cut point. So then when it does the analysis, I've actually got over in my project that I have open, the analysis will give me sub clips. So if you're doing, let's say this show, and we're going to start clipping down these shows, I'm actually going to run the analysis and get all the cut points. So when I switch cameras and stuff, it's just going to find all those for me. And then I can quickly jump to areas where we've got some nugget, some really good bit of info, and just chop it down that way.
That will be fun.
Yeah. Let's see how long that takes, eh? So it's 3 minutes.
So your scene detection, what's the mechanics behind that? Is it a facial detection, or is it looking at everything in the scene and kind of
It's analyzing everything. Yeah.
Okay.
At the moment, it's not doing any dissolve analysis. That was deliberately not put into the first version of it. It's in discussion how we'd go about doing that. But yeah, if you've got any cross dissolves, they won't get detected. It's just cuts for now.
We didn't get into Audition, but
No,
pretty much
didn't.
works the same way. We did that on Thursday night, but again, to any music makers out there, it really sings with Audition. If you're doing multi-tracking, or you've got a multi-instrumentalist or instrumentalists in different places, you can certainly do your recordings remotely and collaborate very quickly too.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what kind of content you're doing. So if you're in here and you start playing around with it, do something in After Effects.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I made a little After Effects folder and I put an After Effects project in there. All right, cool. This is going to wrap up in a second, and when it does, then we'll say goodbye. Proper goodbyes. Interesting doing it on a Saturday. Don't know about the time though. Bit early. Sorry about that.
Well, yeah, this is
Cool.
it's
So
just
it's
the
done
way
that.
it is.
Yeah,
It's
it
good
is.
to get up and do things in early on a Saturday.
I actually prefer to keep my wake up times consistent these days. Maybe it's just me getting older
Yeah,
because I struggle to recover.
because Dan Andrews told you to get on the beers.
Hey.
Donuts.
Right, so here's all my sub clips. These are all the sub clips of that
Wow. Okay.
cut down, right?
Yeah.
So if I was to jump into this folder, and then go into a mode like this one. So that's the new freeform view. I could say, look, go and rearrange this, align to the grid. Where are we here? Reset the grid based on, let's do the time code. Where's my time code? Media, start, boom. Okay, so now I have a bit of a storyboard of a clip that was rendered out. And now I can jump in and find, oh yeah, this bit here. Okay, that's what I want. Or maybe it's this bit. And then I can rearrange these and cluster them. So I go, right, okay, face, not quite close enough face. There's another face. Okay, so I want them to be a group. And I'll make them a bit smaller. Cool. So now I can start going in there and kind of doing some, yeah, pretty cool things. Even though that particular clip was not an edit, I can still go in there and then start cutting it up. Anyway, all good.
Amazing. I
Send
think
that
I'll
back
be using
into
that quite a bit, actually.
Send that back into the ether of productions. Sweet. Well, let's wrap it up then.
Thanks, everybody, for joining
Thanks,
us.
everyone.
On a Saturday.
Jimmy, as always, fantastic working with you on this. And Al and Jude and Julian and
everybody who jumped in.
Who else is jumping in today and being really super awesome? There's a few other people that were jumping in there with questions as well. Daniel, I think it was. Let me sketch through. Daniel Scott was quite active. Thanks for that. And anyone else who jumped in that was just watching, yeah, you've got the login details, so jump in and start having a play. Got any questions, hit us up on the replays of these videos in the comment section and we'll help you out. All right, looks like Dave's gone. Oh, this is weird as. Hang on, I'll try to be your head. I have to get a screenshot of that, it's hilarious. Oh my head. Let me go closer. No. It's weirder like this. It's like head shrinking.
It's like that Pan's Labyrinth thing.
Ah, this is hilarious. Oh my god. Oh. Oh, now you're all upset if I try to do you. Oh, jeez. So much fun. All right. I'm going to
see everybody.
The little see you later. Bye-bye sign. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the tunes.
We won't see you next week, but we'll see you at some point.
We'll see you soon.